The marble floor wasn't meant for shoes like hers. Dirty soles, frayed laces, holes in the fabric. And yet, there she stood, Eliana Morales, 19, trembling as she tightened the strap on her mother's cleaning cart and pushed it past the double doors of the Winslow estate. She didn't belong here. Everyone could see that. But this wasn't about belonging. This was survival. Eliana. A voice snapped behind her. She froze. A tall woman with harsh eyes and a clipboard looked her up and down. "You're not Maria. Who let you in? My mom's sick. I'm just filling in." The woman's lips twitched with irritation. "Next time she's sick, tell her to call ahead and let us reschedule, not replace herself." "I didn't want her to lose the job," Eliana said softly. "Then keep your head down, don't speak to anyone, and stay out of the main hall. There's a private gathering. If Mr. Winslow sees you, he'll have a fit." Mr. Winslow, the young billionaire, the one the world couldn't stop talking about. Alec Winslow, heir to a fortune that could rebuild cities, rebuild hearts if he wanted to. But he didn't. Rumor said he had a heart as cold as the diamonds his family sold. And Eliana had no intention of getting anywhere near him. But life never listens to your intentions. Not when you're holding a mop in one hand and about to step into the room that changes everything. She kept her eyes low, avoided the mirrors, the cameras, the sculptures that probably cost more than everything her family had ever owned. She made it to the west hallway without another word, her heart pounding against her ribs. Just clean. Just survive. Just leave. A door creaked, opened down the corridor. A man's voice, sharp and low. "What are you doing in here?" Eliana's head snapped up. Her stomach dropped. Standing by the fireplace was Alec Winslow himself, his sleeves rolled up, blazer gone, sipping dark liquor like it was routine, even at 10 in the morning. She blinked. I'm sorry. I didn't know this was your office." He took one slow step toward her, then another. He didn't yell, didn't bark like the others, just stared at her shoes, her trembling fingers, the way she clenched her jaw like someone used to being blamed. "You're not one of ours," he said calmly. "No, I'm just my mom usually comes. She's sick today." He tilted his head. "And you think this is safe for you? What choice do I have?" That silenced him. Then something strange happened. He didn't scoff. He didn't call security. He walked past her, slowly, then reached for the mop. "You've never used one of these, have you?" "What?" "You're scrubbing marble with a bleach-heavy mix. That'll strip the polish." He glanced at her again. "If you ruin this floor, the cost could feed your family for 6 months." She swallowed hard. I didn't know." He placed the mop back in the bucket, gently. "Then let me show you how not to ruin it." And just like that, the billionaire who was supposed to be cold, ruthless, untouchable, grabbed a rag and dropped to his knees beside her. No cameras, no audience, just kindness where she expected cruelty. She didn't know it yet, but this moment was only the beginning. Because by the end of this week, Alec Winslow would have to choose between protecting his empire or protecting the girl he never should have met. "You're not supposed to be in that room, Eliana," the house manager hissed later that afternoon, pulling her by the wrist behind the linen closet. "Do you understand what kind of risk you've put us in?" "I didn't mean to. I don't want your excuses. Mr. Winslow saw you, spoke to you. Do you know how many employees have been fired for less?" "But he was kind," she whispered. "Exactly." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Which is why it's dangerous." Eliana stared at her, confused. "You think rich people do kindness for free?" The woman let go of her wrist, disgusted. "You'll learn." Eliana returned to scrubbing the hallway floors with a burning in her chest. She should have kept quiet, should have apologized and walked away. But the image of Alec Winslow kneeling beside her, hands dusted with polish, showing her the right way to mop, it wouldn't leave her. Not because it was romantic, not because it was magical, but because it was human. She hadn't expected humanity in a place like this. "Room's not done," came a voice behind her again. She turned quickly. Alec. He was leaning against the archway now, sleeves rolled up again, no tie, watching her. "Sir, Mr. Winslow, I didn't know you'd be back. You were crying." She blinked hard. "No, just tired. From pretending you're okay." That made her stop. Eliana kept her eyes down, her breathing unsteady. Her fingers were red and cracked from the chemical bucket. Her back screamed. Her stomach hadn't felt food since last night's cold rice. But what broke her wasn't the pain. It was the fact someone saw it. Sit down, he said quietly. I'm working. I own this house, he said without ego, just fact. So sit. Her knees folded on instinct. She rested against the wall, out of breath. For a moment, they sat in silence. Billionaire, cleaner's daughter. Just two people from two different worlds, with a quiet nobody dared fill. Then Alec reached into his jacket and pulled out a wrapped protein bar. Eliana stared at it. I don't need. It's not charity, he interrupted. It's survival. Don't make pride your death sentence. Her hands trembled as she took it. He stood up again and said nothing else. But his voice was softer this time. You're better than this place. And he left. The next morning, she was pulled aside again, only this time by two men in black suits. Eliana Morales? Yes. You've been requested by Mr. Winslow to return tomorrow. Same time. Alone. No cleaning supplies needed. She stared blankly. What? He said, were whatever makes you feel powerful. That night, she sat beside her mother's hospital bed with tears falling down her face. Mom, she whispered. What if he's different? Her mother touched her hand gently. Then maybe you're meant to be the difference he needs. But the next day wasn't kindness. It was war. Because as Eliana walked through those mansion doors again, this time in her oldest pressed white blouse and black slacks, a woman was already standing there waiting for her. Red dress. Ice-cold stare. Perfect posture. Alec told me he hired help, she said with a smirk. But he didn't mention it was a charity case with holes in her shoes. Eliana froze. Let's get one thing straight, the woman whispered. You may have mopped the same floor he walks on, but you'll never be allowed to stand beside him. Eliana straightened her spine, then stepped forward and said something she never thought she had the courage to say. Then maybe you shouldn't be afraid of someone like me. What Eliana didn't know was that the mansion was filled with secrets. And Alec Winslow, he wasn't just trying to be kind. He was trying to protect her from something much darker. Something even he couldn't control anymore. Because someone else was watching. And she was about to be dragged into a world where one wrong move could destroy everything. Eliana's hands were trembling before she even made it past the gates. This time there was no mop, no bleach bucket, no uniform to hide behind. Just her and the echo of her footsteps against the driveway of the Winslow estate. She half expected someone to stop her, to laugh, to drag her out by the collar like a joke had gone too far. But instead, Alec was waiting by the side garden, alone. He looked up from his phone the moment he heard her shoes crunch on the gravel path. No smirk, no mask, just a flicker of something behind his eyes, something unguarded. You came, he said. I didn't think I had a choice. You did, he said simply, standing. But I'm glad you chose to come anyway. He gestured toward the bench beneath the ivy arch. They sat, a safe distance between them. Eliana's hands were folded tightly in her lap. Why me? She asked finally. Alec didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled out a small velvet pouch and set it on the bench between them. She stared. I've been watching the staff for years, he said slowly. They lie to my face. They steal wine bottles. They talk about me behind my back while wiping fingerprints off my mirrors. But you. She looked up. You didn't even flinch when you saw me. You looked me in the eye like I was just some guy in the wrong room. You were scared, but not of me. And that shook me. Her voice was barely a whisper. What? Because the world doesn't look at me like that anymore. Inside the pouch was a key. Eliana didn't reach for it. What is this? She asked. A test, he said. The East Wing has a sealed library. Nobody's allowed inside. I've let it rot for 10 years. She swallowed. Why me? Because someone inside this house is feeding information to the press, leaking financials, details about my movements. And I think whatever they're after, it's in that room. She stared at him, stunned. You want me to spy for you? I want you to tell me what's missing. Nothing more. Nothing less. Eliana held his gaze and nodded. But the door to the East Wing wasn't just old. It was haunted. Not with ghosts, but with something worse. Memories. Photographs. Letters. In a shattered frame on the floor with two faces in it. A woman and a boy. Eliana picked it up slowly. The glass had sliced the corner. Dried blood lingered. She brushed her fingers over the photo and froze when she saw it. The woman in the frame? She was wearing the same bracelet Eliana's mother kept in her locked drawer at home. The one she never talked about. The one she refused to sell, even when they had no money for food. Eliana's mouth went dry. The resemblance was unmistakable. It couldn't be. But then again, everything about this job had stopped making sense the moment she stepped into the mansion. You said your mother's name was Maria. Alex said that evening when she came back pale, breathless, and gripping the frame in a cloth. Yes. His eyes stayed on hers. What was her maiden name? Elena. She swallowed. Maria Elena Devereaux. He stood like someone hit him in the chest. And then, without speaking, he walked over to the fireplace, pulled a hidden latch, and opened a hidden compartment in the wall. Inside was a dusty, sealed birth certificate. He handed it to her without a word. Her fingers shook as she read the name. Maria Elena Devereaux Winslow. Her mother, his aunt. She looked up, stunned. I didn't know, he said hoarsely. I never knew she had a daughter. She never told me who my family was. Alec exhaled sharply. That means I'm a Winslow. The silence that followed was deafening, because everything had just shifted. She wasn't just a poor girl in dirty shoes anymore. She was blood. She was family. And someone in the mansion had worked very hard to keep that truth buried. But now it was crawling to the surface like a secret ready to burn. And Eliana wasn't going to run this time. She was going to find out why her mother left this life, why she'd hidden Eliana's bloodline, and who was so desperate to erase her. They were willing to destroy Alec too. You can't be here. That voice again. The same red-dressed woman from before, Miranda Hale, Alec's head of operations, and, apparently, more than just a staff member. Eliana turned to face her, eyes no longer timid. I'm not just here, Eliana said, voice steady. I belong here. I'm family. Miranda laughed bitterly. Sweetheart, wearing blood doesn't make you royalty. It makes you dangerous. Alex stepped in behind them, his expression sharp. She's staying. Miranda's eyes flickered. You're making a mistake. No, Alex said coldly. I've been living with one. That night, Alec called a private meeting. Not with investors. Not with executives. With family. A select few seated around a long, polished table, their faces cloaked in false concern and carefully rehearsed smiles. Eliana sat at the far end, head held high, hands clenched beneath the table. She didn't know them, but she could feel it, the same way you can feel a storm long before the clouds gather. They didn't want her here, and they never had. Before we begin, Alex said, placing the birth certificate down in the center of the table, I need to make something very clear. Whispers started. A name was uttered. Maria. Someone gasped. She's still alive. Another voice. But she disappeared years ago. By choice, Alex said, because she knew this family would rather bury her than own its shame. He looked at Eliana, and now her daughter sits here, my cousin, with more right to this name than half of you. A woman across the table, one of the uncles, slammed his hand down. This is absurd. She's not one of us. She is us, Alex said, and I will not let anyone pretend otherwise. Eliana barely made it down the hallway before her knees gave out. The adrenaline, the tension, the cold gazes, they all came crashing down like bricks on her chest. She gripped the edge of a marble pillar and tried to breathe. Alec appeared beside her silently. You held your own, he said gently. I felt like I was going to pass out. He cracked a smile. Same. For a moment, they just sat there. Two kids raised in different hells by the same bloodline. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded note. What's this? A code, he said, to a safe. One that holds the truth about your mother and why she ran. Eliana unfolded the note slowly. But before she could read it, a loud crash echoed from the east wing. Alex stood instantly. That's the library. They ran. But by the time they got there, the door was wide open. The shelves were torn apart, and the frame, the one with her mother's face, was burning. Eliana screamed and ran in to stomp out the flames. Alec pulled her back before she burned her hands. Someone had broken in. Someone knew they'd found the truth, and someone was willing to destroy it to keep the past hidden. Back in her apartment that night, Eliana sat by her mother's side again. Why didn't you tell me? She asked quietly. Her mother opened her eyes slowly, weaker than ever. Because I wanted you to grow up whole. I didn't. Maria's eyes shimmered with tears. That family, your blood, cost me everything. I didn't want them to take you too. They tried, Eliana whispered, but they failed. Maria's lips curved into a smile. Then you're stronger than I ever was. But strength wasn't enough. Because the next day, Alec Winslow was gone. Vanished. His office. Wiped clean. His phone. Disconnected. The security tapes. Erased. And the last person seen speaking to him? Miranda Hale. Eliana stood at the edge of the estate gates, fists clenched, jaw set. They want her gone. They tried to erase her mother. And now, they'd taken Alec. But they didn't realize something vital. She wasn't the maid's daughter anymore. She was a Winslow with nothing left to lose. And she was about to burn every lie down, starting with Miranda. The press conference was never meant to happen. But Eliana made sure it did. She stood on the grand steps of the Winslow estate in a black blazer borrowed from her mother's closet, a pair of old heels 2 sizes too big, and a name she now wore like armor. The crowd of reporters was packed tight, murmuring with confusion. Who was this girl? Why was she holding Alec Winslow's signet ring? Why did she look like a storm in human form? My name is Eliana Devereaux Winslow, she began, voice unwavering. And I have something to say. The cameras clicked like machine guns. I'm the daughter of Maria Elena Devereaux, once disowned by this family, erased from every record, and left to raise me in poverty. While this estate threw galas, my mother scrubbed toilets to afford her medication. While her brothers wore silk suits, we patched holes with safety pins. Gasps rippled. She lifted Alec's ring between her fingers. And now the man who welcomed me back into this bloodline is missing. And I know why. She held up a flash drive. Because I found the blackmail files Miranda Hale has been hiding. The offshore accounts. The fake invoices. The Planet Press leaks. Every move she made to dismantle Alec's power from the inside. The crowd erupted. Shouts. Questions. A frenzy. And through it all, Eliana stood still. Powerful. Undeniable. And finally free. Miranda was arrested that night. Not just for embezzlement, but for obstruction, for surveillance fraud, and for attempting to bribe a hospital to access Maria's medical files. Because it wasn't just about money. It was about erasing Maria's daughter before the truth came out. They found Alec 2 days later, in a private clinic outside the city. Drugged, monitored, hidden, but alive. And the moment he opened his eyes, the first words he said were, "Is she okay?" The doctor smiled. "She's not just okay," he said. "She's made you bulletproof." Weeks passed. The estate buzzed with whispers. Eliana didn't move in. She didn't need to. She took the corner office in the Winslow Foundation headquarters, opened her mother's name as the title of a new program, funding education for housekeepers' children, and fired half the board within her first month. She didn't ask for power. She earned it. Through blood. Through truth. Through fire. But the most powerful moment came quietly, in the garden Alec once showed her. The same ivy bench. Same wind. He walked up beside her in his usual sleeves rolled up, tired but soft smile kind of way. "You did it," he said. "No," Eliana said. "We did." He held out his hand, but not like a romantic gesture. Like a partnership. Like an offering. "I meant what I said," he told her. "You're better than this place." She looked him in the eye. "No," she said. "I'm this place now." He laughed under his breath. "Then God help whoever tries to cross you next." And for the first time, Eliana smiled like she believed it. Because she had nothing left to prove. She was the girl who walked in with a mop. And walked out owning the building. And she never looked back.